Welcome back to the Snod Pod with John Snodgrass, your mortgage resource, where we're talking real estate, mortgages, appraisals, and beyond. I've got Dan Ludwig here from Integrity Appraisals, and he's also a real estate agent with Firefly, which we'll get into that aspect too. But Dan, thanks for coming in today. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is exciting stuff.
You're welcome. I know it's like
Snod Pod. It's the greatest name.
I appreciate that. I just thought it'd be great to bring an appraiser in. I mean, it's so busy right now, busy season. But hey, I always like to start with the guests, kind of like an origin story, I guess. How did you get into the appraisal business, and when did you start Integrity Appraisals?
Yeah, so it's kind of a funny story. I actually have my degree in fire science. I wanted to become a fireman, and then I also went to culinary school. So I'm neither using either one of those right now. So it was right after 9/11. Everyone was trying to get into like the firefighter business, which I hear is completely different now. But I wasn't finding a job, and I had a guy that was an appraiser, used to come into the place I used to work at, and he was like, "Why don't you just give this a try?" And like, all right, fine. Kind of begrudgingly went ahead and did that, but. Here I am 20 years later, still doing the same thing.
Awesome.
And I started Integrity Appraisal once I moved up to Wisconsin. I was working in Illinois at the time when I first started, and that was like in 2007-ish. So
Okay.
it's been a good run. I kind of rode out some of the tough times when I first started in 2008, 2009 when the market was garbage.
Yeah, financial crisis.
Thank goodness for
falling.
foreclosures and short sales. It's terrible to say that, but that's what kept me afloat for a couple of years. But
You probably weren't well liked during the financial crisis when appraisals were.
I feel like I could kind of remove myself from the blame from all of the bad mistakes
right,
of the
when
other
you came in,
appraisers. Other appraisers, I just had to clean it up in the back end. But yeah,
Came in to clean it up.
exactly. Clean up the business when I started.
So I guess first question, what is the purpose of an appraisal?
I feel like it's mainly a protection for the bank, for whoever's lending money. Yes. Yep. So, our job is to determine what the house is actually worth, not what someone's paying for it. Mm-hmm. So that way, like the lender gets protection, like what they're lending on the house. So if the house is worth, $100,000 and there's an offer for 120, they don't want to lend on that 120. So that's why the appraisers needed to kind of protect them.
Yeah, make sure that, hey, the market sometimes gets a little
wonky,
a little wild. Like now, it seems like we're seeing some homes get accepted offers, 100,000 over list.
You just had one of those, didn't you?
Yeah. So there's so little inventory and such high demand.
Yep.
We're seeing these prices go, super high. And obviously, like you said, your job is.
Not to help the deal close, but
yeah, it's hey, give the lender a true value so we know what the collateral is.
Yep.
So so on to the next question. I order the appraisal, or my company does, and they reach out and say, "Hey, Dan, we need an appraisal at so and so address." What is the first part of it? Is it you're going out to the house, or are you starting to look at comps?
Yeah, so I'll do a little initial research first, just so I know how much to quote them on the appraisal too, because they're not all the same. You have a lakefront home. You have I just did a 7,000 square foot home on Wiki, which was a condo too, which was one of the hardest jobs I've ever worked on. But so obviously we're charged a little bit more for those. So that's like the first step is actually kind of finding out what you have with the way it comps. Okay. What the house is, what you're dealing with, so you can provide the quote. But I do a lot of research ahead of time, and that way I can kind of speed up the process in the back end once the inspection's done. So it's actually a good tip for realtors too. Like if you come to the house and meet me out there for the sale of the home, and you have a big stack of comps you're going to hand me, I'll probably just put those right in the recycling bin because I've chosen the comps I'm going to use. I've taken the photos when I'm out there, so.
It's worth a shot at least.
Yeah, if you're gonna do it, like send it ahead of time. Don't send it to me last second there, because it's there's a lot of research that goes into the front end of an appraisal before we even go out and see the house.
So if you're a seller, what do you recommend them do? Before you get to the house.
Sure. So first of all, have your realtor, if you do want to send comps to the appraiser, have them do it ahead of time. Send them an email, just like, hey, here's what we're looking at. This is how we priced our house. When it comes to the actual appraisal day, just, have your house like you would for a showing. Have it cleaned, have it tidy, make it easy for the appraiser to get in and out. It's probably your best bet to, get that value as high as possible. I mean, we're human beings too. Like, everyone likes a nice, clean, tidy house. So, and it just looks better because we're going to be in there taking photographs to show the lender. Yeah, that's actually like one of the problems that we ran into at the start when I first started in the business is you would go through a house. I wouldn't have to include a single photo other than the front photo, the rear photo, and the street photo. Wouldn't have to include any interior photos. So what appraisers were doing is they're lying about the condition, making these huge condition adjustments on the report. And then, that's how they inflated some of these values. But so now you have to take photos of every room, the basement, the inside of the garage, which every garage is the same, but that's what Fannie Mae wants these days. So that's what you got to give them.
I mean, so I had one, I don't know, a couple of years ago where the appraiser reached out to us and was like, hey, we can't get in the basement. I'm like, oh, is the door locked? Or, somebody in the company was, but there's kind of a mediator between loan officer and appraiser. So, the person in our company was like, what? Is it locked? And they're like, no, there is so much junk. Yeah. I can't get down the stairs. Or like investment properties, I feel like, when you're appraising an investment property, it's just not in the best. Any interesting stories there about where you walk in?
I've walked in as a naked guy before. So I was literally doing this investment property, and the guy, the homeowner met me out. They were knocking on the door. The tenant wasn't answering. So I'm just going to let you in. So he let me in. Yeah. We're starting to walk through the house. I'm taking the measurements with my little laser measure. Then all of a sudden, this dude walks out of his bathroom completely naked. Doesn't bother to cover up, not a towel or, put on some underwear. He's like, oh, sorry, I'm naked. And just walks through that room. Right, that's a first for me. Never want to see it again either. Yeah. But that was a first. I've been in houses where that been drugs stashed in the window and stuff like that. You see all kinds of stuff in this business, especially with the investment properties. They seem to be a little,
less
yes.
I just think you have it ready because it's first impression for you.
Exactly.
You want to, so.
Yeah, I'm always kind of amazed when I go through people's houses and it's trash. You didn't pick up a single thing or bother to make their bed or anything like that. Come on, it's a simple thing you could do just to make the pictures look nicer. Because if I'm saying this house is in good shape, and sometimes it is in good shape, but it just doesn't look like it because of the clutter and the mess in the house. So
kind of in the nuts and bolts of the appraisal, I'll see, you took the pictures, and so now you're kind of deciding, hey, there's comp one down the street, and then tell me a little bit about how you go about adjustments for, hey, I'm going to give this house $10,000 because their basement's a little bit bigger,
sure,
or kitchen or master bath, or this one's got an extra room, just plus and minus.
So
hits and stuff.
This is actually kind of a sore subject right now for appraisers because a lot of appraisers would just do these blanket adjustments. A basement's or an extra bathroom's always worth X amount of money, or the square footage is always worth this amount in this area, and that's really not what an appraiser is supposed to do. Our job isn't to pass judgment or pass these put these set dollar amounts on the houses. It's to interpret the market data. So if I see that a house is selling for $10,000 more, and the only difference is that one bathroom, then the adjustment should be $10,000. It shouldn't be an arbitrary, $5,000 because that's what I've always done as an appraiser. Sure. So the one thing I see is appraisers don't bracket stuff a lot of times. So have a better sale and then a lesser sale, and then kind of figure out what the meeting ground is for that adjustment and what it should be. So unsupported adjustments are one thing that Fannie Mae has really been going after a lot, and it's incredibly important. I think our job is to interpret the market, not to just be the all-knowing appraiser.
Right. So, not just, hey, whatever the person paid for it. And the value.
Just you're not a green check.
Right. Yeah. So what is, so I mean, obviously it's, I do a lot of conventional purchase business, but then, sometimes I'll do some government loans, FHA loans, or purchase and VAs. Are there any significant differences or even minor differences between conventional FHA and VA loans?
Yeah, so FHA requires a different level of kind of completeness of the house. It has to be in a certain condition. So you can't have chipping or peeling paint on the outside.
Yeah, that's always...
It's like,
seems like that always comes up.
Of like 90% of the time, 90%. When it's like when an FHA loan gets held up, it's because of the chipping and peeling paint. People don't even realize it too. It'd be like the windows on the outside, and like, or like, you know, they'll have like a storm window on, and then they'll have like the windows, but the windows all have chipping and peeling paint from the sun, you know, pouring into there. Yeah. And like those have to be painted. Unfortunately, it's just FHA rules. And I usually try to tell sellers and tell the borrowers like right away, like, this is what you need to do. I'm sorry to do this. It's not my rules. If you can switch to conventional, that's great. But unfortunately, FHA is a bit of a pain in the butt when it comes to that stuff.
Railings too, I feel like.
Yeah, handrails going downstairs. If there's like more than like 2 or 3 steps, like, and the appraiser deems, the appraiser deems that it's a safety hazard. They're really looking for the safety stuff. And because if it's homes built before 1978, then you get the lead-based paint hazard. Yeah. That's why that usually comes up, because almost everything in Milwaukee is built before then. So.
Okay. What about VA? Anything different than a conventional?
It's same. Yeah, I personally don't do VA, but as far as I know, it's exactly the same requirements as far as
FHA.
Yeah. FHA and VA, they're the same. I think the lending stuff is different. You probably know better about that than I would. And you can like put 0% down.
Yeah, VA program is super, cool. If you got
qualify.
Qualify for it. So, what about, like, I had one recently where a buyer was buying an investment property. I think it was a 2-unit, and it came back. Hey, the value is this, subject to this. I mean, like, what are, so when we can't close the loan until we because most of the time the appraisals are as is.
Yep.
And then, hey, that's what we're looking for. But every now and then we get a subject to. What are some reasons why you might have a subject to?
So there's 2 different kinds of subject to. You can do subject to repairs. And so that would be like something for the FHA stuff, like we were talking about. You got to paint this, and then the value would be, what it is. Or you can have subject to an inspection. So that's like something that's outside of the, specialty or the expertise of the appraiser. So like if I see cracks in the foundation wall, I know as like a real estate agent going through houses, like horizontal cracks are not a good thing. It's usually a sign that the wall is pushing in. So I'll call that out, just like, hey, have an inspector come in here, take a look at it, make sure it's structurally sound. And if it is, then, the appraisal is what it is. If it's not, then you either have to have it fixed, or, it's going to affect the value significantly.
So on the recent one that I had, something like, foundation that came up, and we got an engineering firm to come out.
Yep.
Obviously, the buyer, hey, you got to pay for it, or try to work it out with the, seller, split the difference or something. But on that particular one, hey, they came back and said it's fine, don't worry about it, essentially.
I swear there's like home inspectors out there that is like, I'll just sign off on it, but give me the repair later on.
but for you, there is like, you're trying to you're looking out for yourself, but also
for the lender. Yeah.
So like so you're trying to do a thorough job, and then, hey, you want to make sure the collateral is in good shape just in case, horrible situation. Hey, I get hit by a bus, and now the house goes in foreclosure.
Well, it's more for the lender, to be honest. Like, obviously there's some liability on our part if we don't disclose like a significant defect in the house, and it's the same thing for realtors too. If like they know there's something wrong with the house, and you're not disclosing that to the buyer, to the sellers, like that's a huge issue. But I feel like the main protection as far as the appraiser goes is for that lender. And so a lot of times what will happen is like the lender will go out and they'll get an inspection on the house, and the inspector will say something like, the wall is okay for right now, but like monitor it in the future. And for me, I don't want to sign off on something like that, because that sounds like it's an ongoing issue still. And so what I'll try to do is pass the buck to the UW, like the underwriter, and hope that he or she will just go ahead and clear the condition on their end. But like, I don't want to be making that decision. It's, obviously it's not my money that I'm lending on the house, so I don't feel comfortable making that kind of decision. So I've had like a lot of situations where a lender will kind of force me to make that call, but it's not the appraiser's decision whether or not to clear a condition like that.
Okay. What about like a rural? Is there anything different than a rural appraisal versus, hey, toast a home where there's comps seem to be everywhere?
The like, difficulty levels obviously a lot different.
Rural, like sometimes I'll see like 5 to 10 acres out in Elkhorn or something.
Really, it's the same process as far as picking the comparables. You always want to choose the most geographically close and the most similar to the house. obviously, when you're doing something in a rural area, you just have to kind of extend that search radius out a little bit further. Kind of be selective about what you're looking for. You don't want to look for, homes on a quarter acre when you're comparing it to a 10-acre farmhouse or something like that.
Okay.
But as far as the process goes, like I'm still, like I said, still trying to pick the closest comparables. Like the inspection process is still the same. I have to go through all the outbuildings and things.
I was going to say, like, if there's an outbuilding on there, which seems to be common in the rural areas, so you're trying to find one without it.
Usually.
And if there's not one on there, you kind of like taking away, adding in adjustments or.
A little bit, yeah. I usually try to find, like, it's pretty easy to find stuff that has like those outbuildings because they're all pretty similar. So with that condo that I just did, so in that one there was like legitimately no comparables for that house. Like it's just too big. There's very few condos on the lake that are selling out in lake country. So for that I had to get a little creative and actually had to find two similar properties, like acreage wise. One was on a lake, one was not on a lake, and I just took away the adjustment. Like, so I think the one on the lake sold for $265,000 and this one sold for $65,000. So I made a $200,000 adjustment to the comparables that were not on the lake because I had some that were the same size but just not on the lake. So that's kind of how you do something a little bit more difficult and charge a little bit more for the appraisal for sure.
Yeah, it's more difficult. Obviously, you're letting us, the lender, know.
Hey, exactly. But yeah, supplementing TOSA is just incredibly easy. There's always comps for those properties.
So in condos, so I had a condo 6 years ago. We sold it, and I think there was one or two comps in the building. Mm-hmm. Anything really different there? I mean, are you trying to find comps in the building, or
ideally, you want to find stuff in the project, and if not, then you try to go. The lenders I mean, you probably know it's like the lenders always want one from a competing nearby complex too. So. But usually you try to stay within the complex, add one from outside, one active listing, usually just to kind of, predict what's going to go on in the future.
All right, well, let's wrap this one up and then we'll come back, do one more. We'll talk a little realtor lender stuff maybe.
Perfect. Sounds good.
All right, we are with Dan Ludwig of Integrity Appraisal, president and owner. I'm John Snodgrass. This is the Snod Pod. I'm your mortgage resource. And we're talking real estate, mortgages, appraisals, and beyond. Thanks for joining. We'll be right back.